Hello and welcome to the Engines Off Idling training session. This is a free resource for London businesses supported by the Mayor of London. This video shares the importance of avoiding engine idling and the benefits of turning off. In today's session, we will discuss the health consequences of pollution before outlining the ways we can use our vehicles more efficiently to make less pollution. We will share tips to avoid unnecessary pollution and to help your organisation commit to cleaner air. Through the Engines Off campaign, organisations across London are committing to reducing emissions. We are asking you to take the Engines Off pledge and to commit to simple actions that will reduce levels of pollution Londoners are exposed to every day. Let's get started. How do you think air pollution affects our health? Air pollution can cause immediate symptoms like coughs, headaches, and skin conditions. It is also responsible for long-term health conditions and chronic diseases. Exposure to air pollution causes lung conditions like asthma, bronchitis, and cancer. It is also responsible for conditions of the heart, liver, and nervous system. New studies are also linking air pollution with dementia and reduced brain function.
Over 4,000 deaths each year are associated with exposure to air pollution in London.
These deaths are often associated with chronic conditions caused by this pollution, which, for many, is unavoidable. Even short-term exposure to pollutants can inflame airways and exacerbate acute health effects. Pollution does not affect all Londoners equally. Its dangers disproportionately impact Londoners living and working in deprived areas. Air pollution does not just affect adults. It impedes normal childhood development and causes birth defects and miscarriages. Research shows that when children's lungs are still developing, they are particularly vulnerable to pollutants in dirty air. Children living in areas with high pollution are more likely to suffer from asthma and to have reduced lung function as adults. Air pollution in London today is a public health emergency. As we recognise its impacts, we can all start to take action and address the problem. By understanding pollution, its sources, and its effect on our bodies, we can all do our bit to turn off, reduce emissions, and protect the health of Londoners. It is tempting to think that pollution in London is no longer an issue, since we don't experience smog like we used to in the early 1900s. However, modern pollution is an invisible killer. Scientists have studied the effect of a variety of pollutants on respiratory health. But when we are looking at pollution in London today, we usually focus on nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. Nitrogen dioxide is created by combustion, especially around vehicle engines, boilers, and generators. Its levels in London are highest where road traffic is heaviest. Nitrogen dioxide is usually invisible, yet it is toxic. World Health Organization guidance states, long-term exposure to NO2 can worsen bronchitis and adversely impact on lung function. Even short-term exposure to nitrogen dioxide has been linked to acute health effects, including inflammation of the airways. Particulate matter means tiny particles, dust, and soot that are smaller than the width of a human hair. Particulate matter can have many sources, but in cities it is usually associated with smoke, exhaust fumes, and brake dust. Mechanical wear in engines, tyres, and brakes suspends tiny particles in the air, where they are then inhaled. Coarse particulate matter, PM10, particles smaller than 10 microns in diameter, is linked to nasal and upper respiratory problems. Fine and ultrafine particles, PM2.5, particles measuring smaller than 2.5 microns, penetrate deeper into the lungs and bloodstream. PM2.5 is linked to lung disease, heart attacks, strokes, asthma, and cancer. In the UK, there are legal limits for levels of nitrogen dioxide. There are international guidelines on unacceptable PM levels from the World Health Organization. However, no level of exposure is deemed safe. There are 2.6 million privately owned cars in London, and many more cars driving through each day. The most common source of pollution in London is from traffic on our roads. Road transport contributes to more than half of the most deadly emissions. Engines, and especially diesel engines, produce nitrogen dioxide. Mechanical wear from engines, wheels, and brakes makes particulate matter. We all share responsibility for the pollution in London, and we can all do our bit to make the air we breathe cleaner. Idling is when an engine is left switched on when stationary. Unlike a moving vehicle, emissions from an idling vehicle accumulate in one location, leading to higher concentrations of pollutants. There are some circumstances in which idling cannot be avoided, like waiting in traffic or at a pedestrian crossing. And running the engine might be necessary in some cases. Refrigeration vehicles, vehicles with specialist equipment, and emergency service vehicles, for example, are exempt from idling regulations. So what we are addressing is roadside idling. We are asking you to turn off your engine when it is possible and safe to do so. Why is idling such a problem? Firstly, it is unnecessary and it wastes fuel.
It is polluting the air. An idling HGV produces 0.09 grams of NOx per minute, and an idling diesel car produces 0.07 grams. Although these values seem small, these quantities can have a significant impact on local air quality.
It's a nuisance. Residents make complaints about idling vehicles which may reflect on your organisation. Roadside idling is against the law, and you may receive a fine from a parking warden or an environmental protection officer. All local authorities involved in this project have committed to enforce idling under the road traffic regulations. Idling and pollution exposure. Idling often takes place in busy locations, at roadsides, depots, and car parks. The closer we are to the source of pollution, the more pollution we are exposed to. Because vehicles often idle in places where we live, work, and learn, it means we have prolonged exposure to unnecessary emissions. Here are some tips to reduce the levels of pollution you and the people around you are exposed to. Studies have found that in some cases, pollution levels are worse inside vehicles as opposed to outside. When vehicles are waiting in traffic, the emissions from the exhaust of the car in front may be drawn into your vehicle through the air vents. A great tip to breathe easier every day is to switch the air to recirculate when you are standing in traffic. This means less pollution is drawn into your vehicle on busy roads. Cut the engine when you need to take a break. Getting out of your vehicle and stretching your legs is another great way to give your engine a rest and get some fresh air. We also recommend improving vehicle standards where possible. Diesel vehicles and older models are generally more polluting. Myths of idling. If I cut my engine and restart it, the ignition produces more pollution. This is not true for modern engines, especially if your engine is still warm. A new study by Transport Research Laboratory demonstrates that idling for just 30 seconds makes nearly twice as much pollution as restarting your engine. If I'm parked on a yellow line, keeping my engine running means that I won't get a fine. Traffic wardens can fine you if you are parked somewhere you shouldn't be, whether your engine is running or not, and you can also be fined for idling. It's cold outside, I need to keep my engine running and keep the heater on. If you switch the engine off when you park and keep the ignition on, the heater should stay warm for up to 30 minutes, and you won't be breathing in harmful fumes. It's better to idle because stopping and starting will wear out the engine. This is no longer the case with modern engines. In fact, incomplete combustion due to engine idling dirties your engine and increases wear and tear. Looking after your engine is important, and you can do this by only keeping it on when you need to. Saving fuel means reducing emissions such as nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. This results in cleaner, healthier air, benefiting employees and members of the public. It's great to be green and be seen, tackling air pollution, benefiting the environment, and sharing your good work with the public. This benefits air quality in London as well as your organisation's CSR agenda. If we reduce our emissions, we can help the business operate more efficiently and reduce the impact on the communities in which we operate. Avoiding unnecessary idling reduces fuel usage as well as harmful emissions. It also improves your green credentials and benefits Londoners. All employees can contribute to your organisation's goal by looking out for idling and driving responsibly. Committing to clean air. We are encouraging all organisations taking part in the Engines Off campaign to include their commitment to turning off in company policy. Our toolkit can help your organisation formulate an effective policy. No matter the size of your organisation, remember, you are in charge of your vehicle and therefore you are responsible for the levels of engine idling and fines your actions incur. All you have to do, providing that road safety is not compromised, is turn your engine off when you are stuck in non-moving traffic or are stationary, when you are parked up, and during your breaks. Remember, excessive idling of engines is a waste of fuel and money. The unnecessary emissions produced are not only bad for the environment, they harm our lungs, hearts, and brains. Please take the Engines Off pledge and help your organisation to commit to cleaner, healthier air. Remember to switch off when in the depot or the car park, when loading and unloading, when charging your phone or listening to the radio, when waiting for someone, when keeping warm or staying cool, and when pulled over or taking a break. If you get out of your vehicle, turn off the engine, and if you anticipate being stationary for more than 1 minute, you can switch off your engine as soon as you're stopped. Thank you for listening to our training session today. Idling Action can share posters with your organisation that can be put up around the premises, as well as stickers to display on vehicles as a reminder to save fuel and prevent unnecessary emissions. Remember, turn it off, don't idle, it gets you nowhere.